The Hitting Zone Chapter 26 to Chapter 50. Please subscribe and like the video to support our team, thank you. Noah didn't come right back, which should have made me worried, but all I felt was relief. His comment on my lack of childhood felt like it shattered something inside and I needed time to gather myself. Mr. Duncan said before that I would have to see a therapist and I can understand why. I'm still broken. Maybe not on the outside anymore, but definitely on the inside. After 20 or so minutes, I felt better. Maybe crying is a stress reliever? I got up, stretched, and went to the bathroom to wash my face. Then I went to go look for Noah. Maybe his brothers were back and that's why he didn't come back. I heard voices coming from the dining room so I peeked in. Mrs. Atkins and Mr. Duncan were on one side of the table talking to one another, while Noah was on the other end just frowning at them. Mr. Duncan noticed me first. "Oh, hi Jake. How's it going? Getting adjusted?" I nodded once. Noah and his mom were very welcoming. "That's good." He nodded in satisfaction. "I wanted to be here for you when you meet the rest of the Atkins in case you get overwhelmed." I tilted my head in confusion. Why would I get overwhelmed? He's not that wimpy. Noah rolled his eyes. Noah James. Mrs. Atkins frowned. Mr. Duncan is just doing his job, looking out for Jake. I'll be looking out for him. Noah gave me a smile. I wouldn't let anything happen to my little brother. I felt warm inside from his sincerity. Noah made me feel safer than anyone I've met, including police and doctors. I went over and sat next to him to show Mr. Duncan that I believe in Noah. Mr. Duncan gave a light laugh. "I'm glad you guys have bonded so quickly. Nonetheless, I have to make sure your brothers and dad have the right attitudes to a new addition. Even if you guys pass tonight, I will still have to make visits every now and then. Scheduled visits and surprise visits. I'll also receive progress reports from your school, therapist, Mary and Wayne. And I'll also be giving you updates on the search for your dad." I turned away to show my displeasure. Noah took note. "You don't want them to find your dad?" I sneered. He didn't want me to begin with, why would he want me now? He already has the son he wants. Noah looked upset and asked Mr. Duncan, "What if his dad isn't a good dad?" Mr. Duncan was caught off guard. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We're still looking through records just trying to find a name so it won't be any time soon." Noah didn't look happy with that answer, but I didn't mind. They could take all the time they need. Finding him would be pointless. Jake doesn't need him anyways. Noah huffed. A dad like that already ran off on him, so what's the point wasting time looking for a deadbeat? Jake can just stay with us. Noah. Mrs. Atkins warned. You don't speak ill about strangers. There could be circumstances that couldn't be helped. You should always look for the best in the people and not assume the worst. What does making assumptions do? Make an ass out of you and me. Noah sighed, but I laughed. I've never heard of a saying like that. Mom has a lot of those. She's what you call an optimist. Always seeing the bright side of things. Just wait until dinner. Oh. Dinner. I should get the Salisbury steaks out of the oven and finish the sides. MRS. Atkins got up in a hurry. Why don't you set the table, Noah? Let Mr. Duncan chat with Jake. Ridiculous. Jake only talks to me. Mr. Duncan looked at us in surprise. You've heard Jake talk. A little here and there. Noah slapped my shoulder. It's a work in progress. Mr. Duncan looked at us, happy. I'm glad. He told us. He looked at me specifically. You're doing great, Jake. I'm sure you'll be safe and happy here. I gave a look at Noah. The word safe isn't one I would use in his company. He seems to be a troublemaker. Noah looked offended. Are you trying to say that I'm not safe? I tilted my head in response. Okay. Today was a bit tricky. But nothing happened. You even got a new bat today. You got a bat? Mr. Duncan asked. I nodded. It doesn't bother you? I twitched. It's a wooden bat. Noah cut in. He didn't want to use either of my aluminum bats. Does that have something to do with his mom not letting him play baseball? Something like that. Mr. Duncan grimaced. She's a very sick woman. Understatement. Noah, set the table please. And grab a chair from the office. Mrs. Atkins hollered from the kitchen. Your dad sent me a text saying they'll be here in just a few. 8 plates, 8 sets of silverware, 8 chairs. Ugh. Noah got up to do as he was told. As he moved around, I sat patiently at the table. Mr. Duncan did too, not bothering to force small talk. It wasn't long before we heard noises from the garage and chatter started to flow into the house. You were total shit this week. I don't even know why you were invited. That's rich coming from you. Even Noah would be a better participant. That runt? Police. I heard a cough. The two arguing voices found their way to the kitchen. They were both tall. Like Mrs. Atkins tall. 6 foot. Lanky and slightly lean. They both stopped arguing once they saw me and Mr. Duncan sitting there in silence. Oh, you must be the twins. Mr. Duncan stood up and walked towards them with a hand out. I'm Doug Duncan. This is Jake Hollander. He held out his hand. One spoke up. Yes, hi. I'm Kyle. This is my twin Dave. David. The other twin corrected. Kyle rolled his eyes. It's all the same. I've been calling you Dave my whole life. I'm not going to stop now. He gave me a nod. What's up, Jake? I blinked, unsure what to do. Waving seems lame. A head nod back wouldn't really be me. I just sat there, frozen. Jake's shy. Mr. Duncan shrugged. He doesn't talk much. Only to me. Noah bragged as he brought in plates and silverware. Liar. David rolled his eyes. He zoned in on me. Jake, don't be fooled by this brat. His bragging is the only thing he excels at. I just kept staring. Dave and Kyle were identical twins. Both had the same build, same face, same haircut, even the same demeanor. It was uncanny. Jake really doesn't talk. Mr. Duncan said helplessly. But, apparently he has said a few words to Noah. Which is an improvement compared to the faces he makes at me. I frowned at him. See. He gave me a light smile. Just proving a point. Don't mind me. I'll go see if Mary needs help in the kitchen. He made his way out of the room. Dave plopped down next to me on my left. So you won't talk to us? Even though we're taking you in? Don't expect me to protect you at school then. My eyes widened in fear as I looked towards Noah, fear written all over my face. What does that mean? Mary didn't say I had to talk to her at all. And why would I need protection at school? Is high school really that troublesome? Stop being a douche. Noah smacked him on the back of the head. Then nimbly dodged the arm Dave threw out. Jake, don't listen to his crap. Nothing about high school is scary. Kyle took a seat across the table. That's because you have 3 older brothers watching you. What about the time you pissed off Alex from the football team? Dave snorted. Right. If it wasn't for Zeke and us, you would probably have your ass kicked. Dave nudged me. Watch out. Hanging with this brat will get you in trouble on a daily basis. I nodded. I could definitely tell after today. Dave looked at me, surprised I would agree, I guess. Looks like he's already dragging you down. Just stick with me. I looked at him with disbelief written all over my face. Noah and even their mom has mentioned the twins a couple of times. From what I gathered, they're the real troublemakers and Noah has nothing on them. Dave reaches out and pinched my cheeks. What's with that skeptical look? Noah already talking shit about me, huh? He let go and jumped up to put Noah in a headlock. Yeah brat, what did you say? Noah laughed as he slipped out of his grasp and nimbly ran to the other side of the table, avoiding being caught. I just told Jake the truth, the twins are the real troublemakers. Kyle jumped out of his seat. The twins. Me too. Him and Dave trapped Noah between themselves. Kyle grabbed Noah's arms and stretched them up, which was easy to do since he was easily half a foot taller than him. Get him Dave. Make sure he pees his pants. Dave smiled evilly as he got closer to Noah. He reached out and started to tickle Noah's armpits. Noah was laughing ridiculously loud. He must be very ticklish, because I've never seen someone laugh so loud. It was only a few minutes before he started yelling for mercy, for me to save him, and for his mom to come help. Anything to make them stop. Boys. What did I say about teasing Noah? A masculine voice came from behind me. I flinched and quickly looked. This man was the definition of huge. I thought Mrs. Atkins and the twins were tall, but this man made them look normal. He was easily 6 feet 5 inches and was buff like he hits the gym every day. Yet, his face had some wrinkles from smiling and laughing too much. His light eyes were a dark gray and matched the silver suit he was wearing. Definitely Mr. Atkins. Dad, don't be deceived. This is retribution for his shit talking. Dave didn't stop his assault. It's not shit talking if it's true. Noah gasped out between laughs. Okay. That's enough. I don't want Noah to pee his pants in front of guests. Set him down and go see if your mother needs help bringing the food in. Mr. Atkins took control and halted their torture session. The twins let Noah go and grumbled as they went to the kitchen. Noah was still struggling to catch his breath as he flopped into the seat next to me. Noah, how many times do I have to tell you not to rile up the twins? Don't be so provocative. Mr. Atkins took a seat at the head of the table. I was falsely accused, Dad. Noah cried out, pouting. The only bad thing I may have said to Jake about them was that if one of them is driving, make sure to pray. So dramatic. Mr. Atkins laughed then looked at me. But seriously, make sure to sit in the very back and stay buckled up. A seat belt can save more lives than God. Wayne. Mrs. Atkins came in just as he finished. I don't want to hear you bashing your own sons and my God in the same sentence again. Mary gave me a tight smile. I swear it's not always this rowdy. Lies. Noah whispered to me. I laughed at Noah's remark. It's true that this family seems pretty lively at all times. Just being with Noah all day was more excitement than I'm used to. I couldn't imagine being with all of them, all the time. Noah. Are you mocking me? Mrs. Atkins raised an eyebrow. No ma'am. He sat up straight. I was just telling Jake that he's going to have so much fun in pre-calculus with the twins. She looked at me worriedly. Well, maybe we should make sure you're in a different class time or something. But then he won't share his other classes with me. Noah refuted. What? Jake's in math with us. Dave walked in with a pan and set it on the table. Kyle followed in with a pot of mashed potatoes. Wow. He must be brilliant. That must be why Noah is sticking so close to him. Boys. Mr. Atkins warned. We don't put others down. Especially your own brother. Someone get Zeke from the garage. Let's start taking seats before dinner gets cold. Mr. Duncan snuck in from the kitchen and quietly took a seat on the other side of me. You doing okay so far? I know it's a lot to take in. A lot of new faces. I shrugged, silently watching the bickering and moving about. Kyle went to get Zeke. Dave and Mrs. Atkins were going to end from the kitchen, bringing out food. Noah was telling his dad about the shopping trip yesterday. There was a lot going on, but I felt at peace. This is way better than the dead silence I lived through. There was constant laughing even when they were supposedly fighting. When my mom and I would fight, it was just one-sided abuse. Listen up. Dinner is on the table, so start simmering down and find a seat. Mrs. Atkins sat at the other head of the table. Noah was next to her, then me, then Mr. Duncan, and Mr. Atkins. That left the other side of the table open for the twins and Zeke. Dave was the first to come in and took a seat next to his mom. Kyle came in next, and took a seat next to his dad. Then it was Zeke. No one has really talked about him much, so I wasn't sure what to expect. I vaguely remembered that he didn't smile in the family photo hanging on the wall. Noah also said he was strict, didn't meddle when he and the twins fought, and that he was the captain of their varsity team. Zeke looked exactly like the photo. He didn't smile and looked very serious compared to everyone else in the family. He sat exactly opposite of me, making me slightly nervous. Jake, this is Zeke. Don't be scared of him. He just has face paralysis. Noah introduced. Zeke's eyes shot towards Noah instantaneously. What was that? Noah coughed, trying to cover his laugh. Nothing. Just telling Jake that you're the captain of the team at school. And that maybe he should ask you for a tryout. Team is already put together. Zeke didn't even sugarcoat it. He can play with the other freshmen. I looked at Noah, unsure if I would even want to play, let alone play with a bunch of strangers. Noah didn't even look upset or worried. He winked at me, then smiled at his oldest brother. What if I told you he could hit a 100 miles per hour fastball, multiple times? The table seemed to fall silent all at the same time. All side conversations stopped and all eyes were on me. Zeke squinted at Noah. I would have to ask you to prove it. Noah's smile got even brighter as if he expected that response. He looked at his mom innocently. Mom, you didn't tell Dad what happened today. Mrs. Atkins didn't look as happy as Noah did. She looked at him sternly. I was going to wait after dinner since we have a guest over. Why? Did Noah get Jake in trouble? Mr. Atkins frowned. It would be better if Doug sees all sides of us. No reason to pretend to be perfect. Mr. Duncan glanced at me. From what I heard so far, I already approve. Jake seems to be having fun and he even wants to play baseball again. Well, for starters, they broke a bat. Mrs. Atkins stated. A wooden bat. An expensive wooden bat that Mr. Williams wasn't going to rent out in the first place. Luckily he was nice about it and let me buy a new one at a discount for Jake. How did you guys break a bat? The twins asked at the same time, obviously in the same wavelength. Faulty equipment. Noah rolled his eyes. Jake is like a machine and can hit the ball with the same part of the bat repeatedly. He moved his eyebrows up and down at Zeke. He foul-tipped 12 of 12 pitches in the 100 miles per hour cage. Zeke's eyebrows furrowed. Wait, honey. That's not such a big deal. Did something else happen? Mr. Atkins asked. Noah had no money on him at all, so they had called me in. Apparently Noah lost it all in a bet. She replied. He also was out of line when telling Mr. Williams what happened. Very rude and undisciplined. Grounding isn't a very viable solution, so I'm proposing no sweets for his lunches or after dinner for a while. We were cheated. Noah cried out. We would have won if the bat didn't break. Noah, what have I told you about gambling? His dad asked. You're too young. You shouldn't be wasting money away like that. No sweets for a month. A whole month. Noah slouched in his chair. For being rude to an adult, that's adequate punishment. His mom agreed. So you were betting that Jake could beat someone in the cages? Kyle asked. Yeah. Noah mumbled. They first challenged him to pitch connections in the 100 miles per hour cage, which he won by foul tipping all of them. Then we did double or nothing, but this time only hits count. His bat broke after 8 hits, just one away from tying it. They grabbed my money and ran off. A loser is still a loser. Dave laughed out. Did you know the guys? Were they older or younger? They were some kids from a high school. The guy that went up against Jake was the cleanup hitter, they said. Noah smirked. I hope we play against them in a real game soon. Such wimps. It's a long season. Kyle shrugged. We might get to see them around. Then we can make fun of them for losing to a bunch of kids. Dave laughed. That'd be great. Are we still doing that tournament before league play? It's in 2 weeks on that Saturday. Kyle nodded. That's our best chance of running into teams we don't play normally. Dave looked at me, smiling. We'll put Jake in the stands to see if he could spot them. Then we could psych them out if we run into them. Jake wouldn't be in the stands. Noah disagreed. He would be in our lineup. I told you he bats really well. Batting better than you is nothing impressive. Dave snorted. He bats better than you and Kyle, combined. And he can switch hit. Noah looked at Zeke. You have to at least let him try out for varsity. He can really hit. Zeke looked at his parents, then back to Noah. I'll give him a tryout tomorrow after school during practice. But just because he's good in the cages, doesn't mean he'll do well in real scenarios. I swallowed harder than normal. Zeke didn't hold back at all. Either I'm good and can stay, or if I flop, then I'm out. I thought the 4 from earlier today were intimidating, but they can't compare with the pressure Zeke emits. The coach will want to keep him. Noah crosses his arms in front of his chest. Okay, that's enough. Mr. Atkins declared. Let's eat dinner before it gets cold. Noah, no sweets for a month. Respect your elders. Zeke, you're not the coach, so you can't make decisions like this. I'll call the coach tonight and explain the circumstances. Dave and Kyle, I don't want to hear about you picking fights with strangers or psyching them out. Mr. Duncan looked impressed with the way all the boys settled down and started to focus on food instead of talking back. Mr. Atkins really took control and was swift with his decisions. I put my focus on my plate. Mrs. Atkins filled the plate with Salisbury steak, mashed potatoes, green beans, and carrots. I've never had a home-cooked dinner before. I was lucky to even find food in the cabinets. Even if they were rowdy, slightly scary, and overbearing, this family would be my dream to stay with. Are you nervous about school tomorrow? Mr. Duncan turned to me to ask. I glanced at Dave, a bit worried about what he said before. Noah noticed. Don't listen to Dave. I'll have your back. And if I can't solve it, we'll just tell Mom. She's on the PTA. He saw my confusion. It's the Parent-Teacher Association. Basically, she helps with fundraising and all that. If anyone's mean to us, she can tell the principal to expel them. It doesn't work like that, Noah. Mrs. Atkins corrected him. I have no authority to get anyone expelled. But if you do have problems, Jake, you should let me or your counselor know immediately. The school doesn't tolerate bullying. I nodded to show that I understood. The rest of dinner was filled with normal chatter and the occasional snarky remark. They talked about classes that were going to be boring tomorrow and what homework needed to be done tonight. It felt like I was on a TV show where everything and everyone seemed perfect. I felt a tinge of jealousy, but quickly stuffed it down as I ate the perfect dinner Mrs. Atkins made. There's no point being jealous now that I got to live this life too. The past is the past. After dinner, came dessert. More cookies. I saw Mr. Atkins frown, yet he didn't say anything. Noah was the only one who couldn't have any. Afterwards it was goodbye to Mr. Duncan, homework, showers, bed. Mr. Duncan's goodbye was simple as he said he'd be back soon to check up on us. He also told me to keep my head up and to make sure I listened to Mary and Wayne. I nodded my consent and he was off. Noah and I didn't have homework to do since we weren't the ones to miss any school. So after our showers, he gave me a rundown of what to expect tomorrow. After getting my class schedule from the office and meeting my counselor, I would follow Noah around since we have all classes together with the exception of math. But I would have that with the twins so I wouldn't be alone. Then after our last class together, we have baseball practice. The coach knows a lot about baseball. He'll see how good you are and keep you even though you don't know much about the game. The hard part will be finding you an appropriate position to play. He thought for a bit. Noah said he would think of a solution for me. It's not like he knew how good or bad I was at fielding either, so we could just come up with something at my tryout/practice. With all of today's excitement, I had no problems falling asleep. The next morning could only be described by one word: madness. The twins were yelling and hollering all over the place and making a lot of racket. It didn't take long for Noah to get dragged into their drama. I stealthily made my way downstairs with my backpack in order to keep my distance. Good morning, Jake. Mrs. Atkins greeted me when I walked into the dining room. Surprisingly, the table was set with breakfast foods. Mr. Atkins and Zeke were also there, already eating. I put my bag down and sat down with a seat between me and Mrs. Atkins. I looked at all the food spread out that included waffles, cereal, eggs, bacon, and so on. Just help yourself, honey. Mrs. Atkins smiled. I only do breakfast like this on Monday mornings to start the week off right. The rest of the week is usually just cereal. So don't hold back. I nodded and started to fill my plate. The only breakfast I've ever had was from my school or when I stayed in the hospital, but neither of those places could compare. In my opinion, Mrs. Atkins should be a chef and not some realtor. Us four sat and ate in silence as the three troublemakers made a lot of noise upstairs. There was yelling and thumping and it just sounded like chaos. I was halfway done when the three finally ran down the stairs. The twins were quick to stack their plate and start stuffing their food down. Noah glanced at me as he sat down. Wow. You ditched me for food? I see how it is. I froze. Then poured as I looked at him. He sighed. I was kidding. Just finish eating. I understand how good mom's cooking is. He started to load his plate. I just thought with a brother my age, you would be there to help me in fights. I looked nervously at the twins. They were stuffing their faces and easily looked menacing compared to Noah. I really didn't want to face them. Like ever. They won't hit you. Mom would skin them alive. Noah said. Yeah, we have other ways to torture you. Dave laughed. I shivered as I thought about their tickling session. I wouldn't want that either. I shook my head at Noah, showing my unwillingness to take them on. Noah sighed. Guess we'll just have to beat them on the field. You're on the same team. Mr. Atkins finally came into play. You boys should be working together and building each other up, not tearing each other down. Yes, Dad. The boys chorused. Even Zeke. Good. He stood up. I hope you kids all have a great day. If any problems arise, be sure to let me and your mom know. And look out for Jake today. He faced me. Jake, it's okay to be nervous and scared. Noah will be there to help. Any other trouble, just find Zeke. He nodded at us and left to the office. I looked at Zeke. He still looked even more intimidating than the twins, so I hope I won't ever have to rely on him. Zeke suddenly stood. Okay, time to go. The twins grumbled, but nonetheless also stood up. Noah looked pitifully at his half-eaten food, and grabbed the muffin and toast. All right, boys. Mrs. Atkins sent us off with a smile. Listen to your dad. Be good. Be safe. Be productive. She waved us to the garage. I followed the boys through the garage to their Dodge Durango. Zeke was already in the driver's seat, turning the car. The twins were putting baseball bags into the trunk. I forgot my bat upstairs. I started to head back in, but Noah grabbed a hold of me. He pointed at his bag in the trunk. I put your glove and bat with mine. We'll share for right now. I also packed some old cleats of mine that you could use for now. I sighed with relief. We keep our baseball stuff in the trunk, so after school we'll go straight to the car to grab it before practice. Noah rolled his eyes. Zeke parks all the way by the fields, so walking through the parking lot in the morning is slightly annoying. I didn't get it, but I nodded along anyways. Then we piled into the car. Dave snatched the front passenger seat, forcing Kyle to the back with us. Even though there was a third row, we three stayed in the middle since it wouldn't be a long ride. Thankfully Noah sat between me and Kyle so I wouldn't feel very anxious. Zeke turned up the radio to drown out the twins' bickering and off we went. When they said it was a short drive, they meant it. Within 10 minutes, the high school appeared in sight. It was in the middle of a residential neighborhood, but stood out as the gym took a lot of space up front and had Watsonville High School written on it. How generic. Zeke drove through the entrance and went to a back parking lot, circling the school, giving me a good look. It wasn't overly huge, just mid-sized. There looked to be a couple of main buildings and then some portable classrooms added on the edges. In the back of the school looked to be the athletics area. There was outdoor basketball courts, tennis courts, and a pool beside the gym. Then further down was the football fields and baseball fields. Surprisingly, there was 2 of each. I tugged on Noah's sleeve and pointed outside the window as we passed by the first set of fields and drove to the second set. The baseball field and football field were only separated by the outfield fence. This lower field is for varsity, Noah said. Hence why Zeke parks all the way down here. That football field is where varsity soccer and football practice, but they play their games at the stadium a couple blocks away. The upper fields are for freshmen and junior varsity teams to practice and play games. After Zeke finally parked, we got out of the car. The older 3 started walking towards the school without a glance to us. Noah held me back and pointed at their baseball field. It was totally decked out with dugouts, stands, lights, and pitching mounds to the side for warming up. Practice is here every day after school from 3 to 6. We also play our home games here, so they have a caretaker for the field itself. They don't have to do cleanup and take care of the field themselves. How fancy. Even though the school isn't huge or a private school, they could still afford something like a caretaker? Nice. I'm not a caretaker, Noah Atkins. I'm the field manager. A voice said from behind us. I jumped, totally startled, and we turned to face where the voice came from. A middle-aged man in a WHS baseball cap was sitting on a golf cart. Right. I forget sometimes. Noah placated. Jake, this is Mr. Miller, the field manager. Mr. Miller, this is Jake, my foster brother. He's going to join the team today. Mr. Miller looked me up and down, clearly not impressed with what he saw. Another fresh meat. Freshman like me? Noah corrected. But he's going to be the best hitter we have, just watch. I doubt it. He doesn't even have the frame to hit home runs. Mr. Miller scoffed. Baseball isn't all about home runs. Noah threw an arm around my shoulders. Just watch practice after school. You'll see how amazing this kid is. Sure. He looked at me. Do you not talk? I do all the talking for him. Noah pulled me closer. You gonna give us a ride to the office after being so rude to a kid? Mr. Miller rolled his eyes. Blackmailing an adult will get you in more trouble than you can imagine one of these days. I looked up at Noah, worried. Noah just dragged me to the golf cart and pushed me on. Then he sat next to me. Thanks for the advice, Mr. Miller. I'll keep it in mind for next time. Mr. Miller just shook his head, but didn't say anything. He started to drive the cart. Don't worry about Mr. Miller. Noah patted his shoulder. He sounds and looks like a grump, but he's super nice. One time he saw the twins bullying me and sprayed them with the hose. I sprayed you too. Mr. Miller cut in. You three were on the freshly planted grass. Have some self-awareness. See? He just doesn't want to be seen as a nice guy. Noah smiled. I wasn't seeing it though. I think Mr. Miller really didn't have a sweet side, just a sour attitude. We need to get Jake's schedule, so take us to the office, good sir. Mr. Miller only grunted. He drove us past the upper fields, the courts, the gym and towards the school buildings. We passed many students but no one said anything, just a few shouts of hey, Noah. We even passed by his brothers, who were surrounded by other teenagers, but they didn't pay any mind to us. Maybe Noah and Mr. Miller did have a friendship. Get off. Get going. I expect to be amazed this afternoon. Mr. Miller pulled up next to the front glass doors. I hurried off while Noah took his time. See ya then. Be prepared. Thanks for the ride. He stepped off and Mr. Miller left without another word. He gives me a ride every morning. Noah told me as he waved, confirming my guess that they were close. He's not just the field manager. He's also the third base coach for games. So he knows what's up. Wow. I wouldn't have guessed. Now let's go and get your schedule. Class will start soon. He opened the door for me and I stepped in. My first step in a high school. I took a deep breath and walked in. It was a wide hallway filled with teens in front of lockers, and doors that were wide open waiting for students to come in. This way. Noah dragged me through the first door on the right. This is the front office. You can find your counselor here. If you get lost, come here. If you lose something, come here. If you're late for school, we'll come here. Anything you need at all, start here. Here was a long counter with a couple of ladies standing behind it. They were chatting with each other, helping students standing in the front of the line, and papers were going from desk to desk behind the big counter. The office was filled with adults moving behind the scenes. They're all office people. Counselors. Principal. Vice principal. Administrative. Receptionist. Noah pointed at different people flying by. I just nodded. It was a busy place, and I didn't really want to be here longer than I have to. How can I help you boys? The woman asked when it finally got to our turn. This is Jake Hollander. He's new. My mom registered him. Noah introduced. She said he should also meet his counselor. The lady nodded and started to look around and came back with some papers. Here's your schedule. A map of the school. The list of books you need to check out from the library. And an agenda book to keep track of your assignments. She looked towards a lady on her left. Macy, have you seen Mrs. Galladay? She has a new student. Macy shook her head. Nope. Maybe she's out and about. She looked at us. She'll get you called from class to introduce herself to you when she finds the time. Noah gave a nod and grabbed my papers for me. All right. Thanks. I'll take him to the library now. Noah led the way out, back to the huge hallway. That was strange. I tilted my head, not understanding. Mom specifically said you would meet your counselor in the morning. He answered. I wanted to be there with you too. Just because I've never met her either. He shrugged. Whatever, it's fine. Let's go to the library. I followed him through the hall as an endless amount of people greeted him. Noah was really popular from the looks of it. The definition of everybody's best friend, I guess. The library already had a good amount of students on the computers and filling up the tables. Slackers. Noah called them. They waited until the last minute to get their homework done. We walked up to the librarian and collected the books I would need. Noah frowned at my locker slip. Your locker is nowhere near mine. I think it would be better if we share until you get comfortable. This way we can walk to and from classes together. I nodded eagerly. I didn't want to be on my own so soon. The school was much bigger than my middle school and it looked easy to get lost. So he led me to his locker where we stashed all but one of my books. English, world history, break, biology, Spanish, lunch, math is when we'll split, and then reconvene for health. Noah gave me the rundown of the day as we walked to our first class. All the teachers should know that you don't really talk, so don't stress about that. I'm going to try and make sure you sit next to me in every class. True to his word, Noah convinced every teacher in our first 4 classes to let me sit next to him. They also gave me looks of pity, so I knew that they knew what had happened to me. Maybe not the whole story, but at least enough to feel sad about it. Noah paid no attention to it though and introduced me to all his friends and classmates. I obediently followed him to each class, trip to the locker, new class, new people. By lunch, I was mentally exhausted. I couldn't remember anyone's name and I felt dizzy with all the homework I got today. More than half of the classes are over with. Noah comforted me. Let's eat outside since Mom packed our lunches. Normally I eat in the cafeteria, but it might be too cramped and whatnot. I nodded. I definitely wanted to stay outside, especially on a nice sunny day like this. It was still chilly because it was only February, but the sun made it bearable. Noah led me to the benches near the gym and picked one to sit at. We sat on either side and pulled out the lunches his mom made us. The injustice. He cried as he compared our lunches. Look how different our lunches are. I looked. We both had a sandwich, chips, a banana, apple slices and a granola bar. The only difference was that I had a bag of cookies and he had a bag of carrot sticks. I offered him my cookie bag. He opened it and took half. Thanks, Jake. Put it back. A stern voice made us jump. Zeke walked up to our bench and snatched the cookies out of Noah's hand and put it back with mine. Mom and Dad said no. Don't be bending the rules. He looked down at me. Jake, don't just go with whatever Noah says. You're supposed to follow the rules. I quickly nodded and stuffed my cookies back in my bag to make sure Zeke wouldn't take them. Noah made a sad face at my lunch bag holding the cookies. He quickly turned to Zeke and glared. What are you doing here anyways? Shouldn't you be sticking to routine and eating in the cafeteria with the team? Dad said to watch out for Jake. I'm doing what I was told. He took a seat next to Noah. The twins should be here in a few. I sent them a text of where we were. He pulled out his lunch and started to eat. Noah rolled his eyes. He moved away from Zeke and took a seat next to me, moving his food over too. What are you doing? Zeke asked. Jake won't want to sit next to the twins. Noah looked at me, and I nodded my confirmation. They scare him. Besides, they behave better when you sit between them. Zeke looked at me. You know you'll have to be with them for pre-calculus, right? Better get used to it. Stop being so no-nonsense, Zeke. Noah opened his bag of chips and started to eat. Jake is still adjusting. If you don't be more encouraging, I'm going to tell Mom. Wow. How childish. Would that even work on Zeke? To my surprise, it did. Zeke looked me dead in the eye and said, the twins aren't scary at all. I gulped. Even though that was supposed to be comfort, it sounded more like a threat. And it certainly felt true. Hey fam bam. Dave plopped on one side of Zeke, and Kyle sat down on the other side. What's up, kiddos? Nothing. Just Zeke being Zeke. Noah sighed. The twins shared a look, then grinned at Zeke. You gonna take that, Captain? Kyle raised an eyebrow. Make him run laps. Dave suggested as he pulled out his lunch. 100. No less. Why don't you run laps, fatty? Noah grumbled as he watched Dave pull out his cookies. Dave waved his cookies in front of him. Is that the sound of jealousy? That's unbecoming on a freshman like you. Don't antagonize him. Zeke slapped Dave in the back of the head. They're resorting to violence. I quickly focused on my food and ate as fast as I could. I really didn't want to be next. Jake, slow down. Kyle commented on my eating. Your food isn't going anywhere. You're going to give yourself the hiccups. I refused to make eye contact. Don't look, and it won't hurt. Maybe they'll go back on focusing on one another. You guys scared him. I heard Noah declared. I'm telling Mom when we get home. Hopefully you guys lose cookie privileges too. I cracked a smile. All Noah ever thinks about is blackmailing and threatening. It's like he was raised by the mob and not some perfect family living in a pink house. Looks like I made him better. You boys are welcomed. Noah held out a hand. Give me a cookie so I won't tattle. You brat. I'm not giving you any. I didn't do anything. Dave huffed and guarded his food like Noah would snatch it. It was obviously Zeke who triggered something. Kyle intervened. Try and blackmail a cookie out of Mr. Goody Two-Shoes. Don't worry, I'll report to Mom and Dad what happened. I'm sure they'll know. Zeke said. No cookies for you. And, you'll have to run 10 laps for trying to blackmail your captain. Noah groaned. You're abusing your power. How about you let me off since I'm bringing a superstar to the team? He patted my back. Jake will easily become a starter, no doubt. I didn't dare to look up. Oh? You wanna make a bet? Dave asked. Yes. Noah answered right away. If Jake makes the varsity team, you run my laps and I get your cookies for the week. I looked at him, incredulously. He still wants to make wagers even though that's what gotten his cookies taken away. Dave shook his head. What would I get then? You don't actually have much to gamble with. Jake will give up his cookies for a month. He replied. My jaw dropped and I immediately started to shake my head. I didn't want to lose my cookies too. And to think that I actually offered him some and risked offending Zeke. Kyle started laughing in my distress. Doesn't look like Jake agrees. It isn't fair that you're trying to gamble away his desserts. How about a different trade? He grinned. If Jake makes varsity, I'll give up my sweets for a week, and Dave will run your laps. But, if he doesn't make the cut, you have to clean our bathroom for the whole month. Noah frowned. That favors you guys too much. Those are harsh terms. He looked at Zeke. Besides, Zeke wouldn't go for it. He would rat us out to Mom. 3 months. Zeke said. You lose, you keep it clean for 3 months. If he makes it, I'll throw in my sweets for a month and won't make you run laps for non-baseball purposes. The twins were stunned. Apparently they didn't expect for Zeke to up the ante. Noah, however, didn't seem surprised at all. He grinned like the cat that ate the canary. Deal. No takebacks. Zeke's smile made me nervous. No takebacks. He agreed. I shivered. This feels like a trap. I don't know for who, but with the bet on and against me, I started to feel sick to my stomach. I leaned over and whispered into Noah's ear. But I don't know how to really play. Noah grinned, not even bothering to whisper back. No worries. We'll discuss the game plan in health after math. We 5 finished eating just before the bell rang. Zeke was the first to make his move and walked off without saying anything else. Jake and I need to go switch out books at my locker. Noah told the twins. I'll walk him to your class afterwards. Why don't you go make sure the teacher gives him a seat far away from you two devils? Dave and Kyle laughed together before replying. Sure. A seat will be ready. We should also tell the teacher that he doesn't speak very much. Only to Noah. Kyle agreed. We all saw that he could talk, so it's not like he's mute. He's just very selective. Noah rolled his eyes. Leave him alone. He pulled me away. Let's get your book. At his locker, Noah took away my book and replaced it with my pre-calculus book. He grabbed his own book, then started to walk me to my class in the upperclassmen hall. Kyle is slightly nicer than Dave, so try to stay closer to him. Dave will only bring you trouble. And if they start to fight, just ignore them and move on. Don't try to get in the middle, they'll just drag you down with them. I wouldn't have thought of getting between them, ever. It was only yesterday they trapped Noah between them and tickled him till he cried mercy. He led me to an inner classroom that didn't have any windows. How bland. I'll take it from here. Kyle met us at the door. Better hurry to geometry before you're late. You don't want detention when you have such a huge wager on the line after school. Noah nodded. He gave me a tight smile, a wave, then ran off, leaving me on my own for the first time since the batting cages. I swallowed down my panic. Well, let's go meet the teacher. He's an old man, close to kicking the bucket. Maybe we'll all get A's if he passes away. Kyle dragged me into the room. I felt my panic starting to rise back up. Who would wish for their teacher to die? Too drastic. I thought Kyle was supposed to be nicer than Dave. Kyle introduced me to the teacher and the rest of the kids that were already in their seats. Then he dragged me to a two-person table and squeezed me between him and Dave. This is what Noah told me to avoid. Oh God. I started to breathe in and out really slow to try and calm myself. Jake, you look scared as hell. Dave commented as the class started. I thought you were supposed to be good at math. Are you nervous that you won't know anything? He pulled out a sheet filled with problems. Here. This is from last week. What do you think? I slowly looked it over and nodded. This was simple. If I could focus on the problems and not the fact that the twins were squishing me, then I could make it through the hour. Oh? Why don't you go ahead and try them then? Dave slid the sheet in front of me. I glanced at the teacher who was talking up front. Don't worry about him. We already explained that you don't talk much. He won't call on you in class. Just work on that sheet. I got a pencil out of my bag and started to work on the sheet. I don't know what it was about math, but it always came easy to me. Math doesn't lie and it doesn't have multiple meanings. It felt like the only constant I had since childhood. I finished the worksheet quickly and easily. It honestly felt just like a refresher on what I already knew. Wow. Done so soon. Dave took the sheet back and looked it over. No trouble at all. I shook my head no. Why don't you try this one too? Kyle pulled a sheet out of his folder and put it in front of me. I finished his even faster. It was the same kind of problems, just different numbers. Wow. Mom wasn't kidding when she said you were good in math. This is going to be great. Dave smiled at me, making me feel slightly uneasy. Okay, pass up the extra credit sheets I handed out last week. I heard the old man announced. Then I watched as Kyle and Dave both passed up the sheets I had just worked on. They put their names on my work, and shamelessly turned it in. My jaw dropped. Thanks, kid. Kyle patted my head. Yeah, we'll be counting on you this semester. Dave laughed. My lips twitched. Counting on me? For what? Doing their math homework. Math went nothing like what I expected. The twins didn't torture or terrorize me. After I did their homework, they didn't bug me at all. I took notes and they played on their phones. They didn't even open their books. After class, they even helped me get back to Noah's locker before going to their own class. Noah and I exchanged our books and went to our last class of the day, health. Apparently it was only for freshmen and it only lasted a semester. The rest of the time would be physical education or another elective if you played a sport. For example, since his brothers played baseball for the school, instead of PE, they took a computer coding class. Health was held in the gym with about 50 kids in the bleachers as a coach spoke about human anatomy and physiology. Noah had us sit near the back and didn't even bother to pay attention. He just started to talk to me. How did math go? Did you understand? Did the twins do anything mean to you? He quizzed me. Fine. Yes. Not really. I whispered. He nodded, satisfied. Good. I was worried the whole time. Now let's discuss our game plan for this afternoon. I let out a sigh, making sure he knew that I didn't have the confidence he had. Now. Don't be such a pessimist. Hitting is your thing. That's what we emphasize. Zeke and the coach will probably have a few pitchers to go up against you. Maybe even the Twins since Zeke took the bet. My eyebrows shot up. The Twins were pitchers? Noah rolled his eyes. Don't be too impressed. They really only pitch to contact, and aren't very fast compared to a machine. Maybe 85 miles per hour at most. They don't have any special pitches except a change-up. You have good timing, so I'm not worried about them. He took a deep breath. The real challenge would be against a junior named Garrett Knudsen. He's our ace. He's a lefty that has a really good cut fastball. I raised my hand to stop. Cut. Noah nodded. He pulled a notebook out of his bag and flipped to a blank sheet. He drew the pitcher's mound and batter's box. Look here. So when a lefty pitches a cut fastball, it comes inside for a righty's swing, jamming him and making the ball pop up or go foul. He drew a path to show how the pitch would look. I pointed at the lefty's box. That's right. You'll have to switch to left for him. Especially if you don't want him to break your bat. A cut fastball is known for breaking wooden bats in the pros. As for speed, Garrett throws a max of 85 mph as well, but he has way better control. He looked up from the book. If you think you can't get a hit, just foul it off. Preferably wide so they can't get you on a foul pop-up. Understand? I nodded. I could foul pitches very easily. I don't know if that's a talent, but it's the closest I can get to one. Good. I already let it slip that you can switch hit, but they don't know that you're equally dominant, so just pretend to be a righty until Garrett comes up. He flipped the page and started to draw bases. Now on to fielding. You know the basics, right? I shrugged. I practiced throwing fly balls to myself, and occasionally I would get another player to roll me grounders, but never at game speed. Okay, this is what we're going to do. He circled the shortstop position. That's me. Then he circled the second baseman position. This will be you. No. I shook my head and moved my arms to form an X. There's no way I could play second base. I didn't know much, but I knew that position would be way too complex for a beginner like me. Now hear me out, Jake. Noah tried to calm me. Most hits come to left field, third base, and shortstop, because a majority of high school ball players will bat right-handed and pull it. As a second baseman, you will only have to coordinate with me and I can just tell you where to go. I stopped disagreeing, but was still hesitant. There's a lot that goes into an infield position. I didn't want to let Noah down, but I did want to play with him. After testing your fielding, they might do situational plays. Like runner on first, 1 out, a hit comes towards me, the shortstop. What do? I pointed at his hand-drawn second base. I obviously cover to get the runner out. Yes, but you also have to make a quick throw to first to try and get the double play. As long as I'm fielding the ball, you should always cover second base, then throw to first. That'll cover most plays. For when you field, I'll cover second, but you should only throw to me if someone is coming from first. Normally no one would be on base, so that's when you immediately throw to first. I nodded. This was the basics. I've seen a few games in middle school, so I wasn't a total newbie. I just didn't have the experience to apply these plays. Now let's talk about covering first base. Do you know when to do that? Noah asked. I didn't reply right away. I don't think I ever saw a second baseman go to first. I've seen a pitcher cover it in a middle school scrimmage game. Okay. If the ball is hit to the first baseman, it's going to be your job to back up the play. If the ball gets into the right outfield, you should sprint out onto the grass and act as a cut-off man. What else? Noah tapped the pencil against his notebook, trying to think of the main points I needed to know. I guess the most important point would be our communication on who is covering the base. He shrugged. We can wing it for now. Today's goal is to just get you on the team. You'll impress them with your batting, skate by on fielding, and then we'll work on your situational plays afterwards. My eye twitched. So much so quickly. Just rely on me. You'll do great. He gave me a confident smile and I really felt like I could do this. He made a fist and held it out. It's a fist bump. You've done this before with friends, right? I made a fist of my own and bumped his. I've never had someone to do this with, but I've seen other kids in my grade do it. Noah really is my first friend. Every kid before was just a classmate. No one had ever reached out to me before like Noah did. I didn't want to let him down, so I must get on the team and win this bet for him. You look pumped up. That's good. Noah slapped my back. Just think, if we could pull this off, we'll get to play baseball together every day. I can't wait. We'll practice turning double plays, fielding drills, and go win games together. It feels nice to be able to share the excitement with someone. I thought so too, but I don't think I would play without him. So this is my only chance. I don't want to miss it. Finally, after class, we got to head down to the fields. Since we took a golf cart up to the office in the morning, I didn't realize it was a bit of a walk back to the car. We ran into the twins and Zeke by the car, and Noah grabbed his bag. We change in the clubhouse behind the dugout. Noah said as we followed his brothers down to the field area. It's nothing fancy, a very simplistic locker room. Simplistic was an adequate description. The large singular room only had open lockers in a U shape, with a bench before it all around. Noah dragged me to the far corner. My locker is over here. We passed by fellow students who had already started changing. We got a few curious glances, but surprisingly no one said anything. Here you go. Noah started to pull out some baseball clothes and placed it on the bench. Then he started to take off his shirt. I suddenly realized I would have to change in front of him. And the team. Everyone would see my scars. I held the edges of my shirt down, refusing to take it off. My scars were long, jagged, and were still an ugly shade of red. The doctor said they would start to fade in a couple of years and eventually be unnoticeable. But that was forever away. After Noah changed his shirt, he saw that I had not. What's up? I wrapped my arms around my stomach. Bathroom? It's just around the corner. He squinted. Are you getting nervous? I picked up a pair of pants and a shirt from his pile, then quickly ran off to the bathroom. I went into a stall and safely changed, alone. I returned to Noah at his locker. He rolled his eyes at me. Such a kid, afraid of changing in front of others. I stuck out my tongue. For good reason. I get enough pity already, being known as the foster kid. I don't want them to wonder why my mom almost killed me. It's too hard to think about, let alone talk about it. Noah passed me a worn-out pair of cleats. These will have to do for now. They might be slightly bigger since I'm taller. We really have to convince Dad to take us to the sports store ASAP. I put them on, laced them up, and walked a step forward and a step back. They weren't too big. Doable. I gave Noah a thumbs up. He laughed at me. Dork. You'll be getting new ones soon, so they don't have to be a great fit for you. He stuffed our school clothes at the bottom of his bag. Most of the team is already in the dugout. Let's go. I followed him out of the locker room and he led me to the dugout. He placed his bag on the ground and pulled out our equipment, bats, gloves, his helmet, and batting gloves, a few water bottles. So you're Jake. A voice from behind made me jump. The man was as tall as Zeke, but more filled out. He looked to be near the same age as Mr. Miller, but unlike him he gave off a more friendly demeanor. I nodded, but still took a step closer to Noah. Noah threw an arm around my shoulders. Hey coach. Meet Jake, my foster brother, and your new second baseman. Noah's easygoing attitude helped me relax. The coach smiled at us. Oh? Already picking out a position? How cocky. I tended up. Noah gave me a pat. It's called confidence, coach. Jake is more amazing than me. That's not saying much. Dave laughed as he joined us. Noah's eyes narrowed. Remind me again, who made varsity as a freshman? Was that you and your crappy pitching? Oh no. Wait. It was me and my superior fielding. Dave glared. Pitching requires more effort. A kid like you wouldn't understand. Boys. Coach cut in. Let's focus on the tryout first before we get lost in this endless discussion. We're going to do warm-ups first. Coach looked around. He cleared his throat and raised his voice. Listen up, men. We have a new face among us. He tried to pat the top of my head, but I dodged by reflex. The team laughed at our awkward moment. Well, you've definitely got quick reflexes. He looked around at the guys in the dugout. This is Jake Hollander. He will be getting a tryout at today's practice, so we'll be changing things up a bit. There was 20 or so pairs of eyes on me. I quickly took a step behind Noah, trying to avoid the looks. Zeke clapped his hands just outside of the dugout. Stop gawking. Grab your gloves and head to the outfield for warm-ups. The team went into action, grabbing their gloves and following Zeke to the foul line in the outfield. Noah turned around and gave me mine before having us follow. Zeke stood on the foul line and dropped his glove. Skips. The whole team followed suit, and started to skip forward to the center of the outfield. Just skip forward, then we skip backwards. Noah explained. Our warm-up is all about dynamic stretching. Do you know what that is? We stood at the end of the group and did our skips with the team. Only going like 20 yards out then back. I shook my head no. Basically it means stretching as you move. Which is different than static stretching, which means you stay in place. Dynamic stretching is better because less chance of injury and you become more flexible. Good for baseball. Noah commented. For every word Zeke called out, Noah had to explain what it was specifically. Zeke was able to shorten every stretch into one word, making me feel that I didn't know anything about stretching. Occasionally I could hear the teammates mention my name, making my face burn with embarrassment. After an assortment of dynamic stretches including arm and leg swings, circles, shuffling, squats, jogging and a few short sprints, Zeke told us to pair up and grab a ball. I obviously stuck with Noah like gum into shoe. We picked up our gloves and he grabbed us a ball. We stayed on the edges of the group so I didn't feel too uncomfortable being around so many strangers. As we threw the ball back and forth, he would keep taking a few steps back, increasing the difficulty of the throws. He wasn't the only one. All the guys on his side kept backing up further on the grass. Dave and Kyle were already the furthest apart, challenging one another to who would have to make a bounce pass. Noah didn't go as far as them and as others. We're infielders. He explained. We focus more on speed and accuracy than distance. The Twins are pitchers, so they also need the strength. I glanced at Zeke, all the way on the other end, tossing the ball with a tall, dark-skinned boy. They had the same distance between them as the Twins. Zeke? He's a center fielder, so he naturally has the strongest arm. He's throwing the ball to Maui Holstrom. He's also a senior. He plays in the outfield as well, usually on the left, but it depends. I stopped throwing the ball, and tilted my head, letting Noah know that I didn't get it. He'll play on the right if Garrett isn't pitching. Because Garrett is a lefty, it's better if he plays left to better protect the foul line. Noah explained. Bring it in. Zeke called out. I turned and saw the coach already standing beside him. It must be time to start the tryout. I forced myself to jog towards him with the rest of the team. Noah caught up to me and gave me a friendly pat on the shoulder. Remember to stay calm. Stay alert. And most importantly, stay loose. Don't tense up. You'll make errors and bad judgment calls if you don't. I nodded. There's no need to be so uptight. I went years without being on a baseball team before. If I can't play here with Noah, I'm sure we can still go to the cages together in his free time. With Jake here, trying out, we're going to switch things up a bit. The coach announced. Whoever wants to pitch against him will go warm up in the bullpen. The Twins were the first ones to start moving. Everyone else will do fielding drills in the outfield with Coach Luis. He clapped a few times. Get going. The team started to disperse. 5 guys, including the Twins, went to the bullpen on the side. Zeke stayed with the head coach, and an older man took the rest of the teens to the edge of the outfield. I tugged Noah's sleeve and pointed at the team. Them being in the outfield wouldn't be safe if I was hitting. Noah looked at them, then back at me. What about them? Did you want me to leave you stranded with Zeke? He saw my frown. Okay. If that's not it, then what? I moved closer and coughed before spitting out. Unsafe. Oh. He brightened up. Right. It is unsafe for them if we don't have people fielding. He dragged me closer to Zeke and Coach. Coach, Captain, we can't put our team at risk. I think it would be best if you put an outfielder in front of them to watch out for balls in play. Coach laughed. I don't think it's necessary. Between your brothers and Garrett, who also went to warm up, it's going to be difficult to get the ball out that far. At most, a grounder may dribble over to them. I frowned and turned to Zeke. He blinked in surprise. I crossed my arms over my chest. I didn't want to be responsible if someone got hurt. After being in danger all my life, I don't want to put someone else in a bad position. I think he's saying he'll tell Mom you aren't playing very safely. Noah translated. Usually you're a stickler for the rules. What would Mom think of your irresponsible actions? Zeke sighed. He turned to his teammates. Assign someone to watch for fly balls. They'll get to work on their fielding during sprints. Suddenly the guys started to volunteer. I nodded. Satisfied that no one will get hurt, I have a thumbs up. The coach chuckled. You really have confidence to beat on my pitchers. I shook my head no and pointed at Noah. I believed him. If he thinks I can do it, then I won't let him down. Noah smiled broadly. Yep. Jake is amazing at hitting. He started to walk to the dugout. Let's get a helmet on you and grab your bat. You should start taking practice swings. No doubt, those guys will try and come out fast. I followed along. Once we were in the dugout, Noah put his helmet on me. Then he pulled my wooden bat out and handed it over. Will you need gloves? Nah. I whispered, clutching my bat and made sure it was smooth. No splinters. We walked to home plate and he watched as I swung the bat around. You don't look like you're putting in a whole lot of effort, he said. I moved my shoulders up and down, then took my stance. I pretended I was swinging at a 100 miles per hour pitch. The whoosh of the bat felt loud between our silence. Okay, I take it back. Noah conceded. You know best. I gave a slight nod. I knew my routine best. Everyone is different, what matters most is what felt right for you. Here they come. Noah looked towards the bullpen. I looked as well, trying to size them up. I've already told you about the twins. The one that's slightly taller than them, but just as lanky, is Garrett. He pointed out. The three pitchers walked in front of two guys, who were in catcher's gear. Kelvin is the catcher on the left. Jordan on the right. Jordan is a senior and he really only catches for Garrett. Normally he plays third. Kelvin is also a senior, and he catches for everyone else. Noah gave me a rundown as quick as he could before they approached us. The only thing I really felt that stood out was that they were all tall. It seemed to be a requirement to be a ball player. I gave the side eye to Noah. He was short compared to the team, but still had 6 inches on me. Noah caught me looking at him. What's up? Getting cold feet. I rested my bat on my shoulder to signify that I wanted to hit. Great. His smile never disappeared. Zeke and the coach also joined with the group. Coach was the one to take charge first. Kyle, Dave, then Garrett if we really have to. He looked at me. You don't have to run the bases. Treat it like batting practice for now. I nodded and everyone started to take their place. Kyle went to the mound, Kelvin tightened his catcher's gear and squatted behind home plate. They did a few warm-ups as the rest backed up and became spectators. I stood just outside the righties box, waiting for them to tell me they were ready. Looking out to the field felt a million times different than looking at a pitching machine and netting. It felt so open, I could hit the ball anywhere. Get a feel for the pitches, Jake. Noah called out. It doesn't have to be all hits. I think he's advising me to foul off a few first before getting comfortable. I nodded. Okay, kid. Step in. Anything close will be a strike, anything outside will be a ball. Don't worry about the calls. Let's see what you can do. Coach commanded. I took a deep breath and slowly let it out, then stepped in the box. I faced Kyle. He gave a nod, then got set. He did his motion and the ball came quick. A fastball maybe around 80 miles per hour too easy. I know Noah said to get a feel for it just because I only have pitching machine experience, but I couldn't pass up in such a simple pitch. I took a fast step, moved my wrists, swung my arms, and connected with his pitch. It was a line drive to left field where the team was. Luckily Zeke had someone stand on watch. The hit dropped right before the guy and he caught it on the bounce. Thankfully not disturbing the team's fielding practice. Nice one, Jake. Noah called out. I could also hear Zeke and the coach talking in the background, but couldn't make out what they were saying. I was zoned in on Kyle, who looked in the outfield with disbelief on his face. Kyle. The catcher, Kelvin, called out to him. He faced us, and then Kelvin threw a ball at him. Next pitch. Kyle nodded, but still looked a bit distracted. He got set once more. This time he tried pitching a bit faster, but to me it looked even more down the middle. When Noah said that the Twins pitch to contact, he must have meant they always pitch in the strike zone. I started my swing and this time smacked the ball to the opposite side in right field. This time Kyle didn't turn to look. He started to glare at me. Ball. He demanded. Kelvin tossed him one and got back into position. Doing pretty great, kid. Usually Kyle makes batters pop up or ground out. Easy plays. So far, you're 2 for 2, both line drives to good spots. I think it was a compliment, but the way Kyle kept glaring made me feel my anxiety bubbling up. Keep it up, Jake. Show him what a real hitter looks like. Noah cheered like mad. Don't you dare wimp out from his glare. He can't do anything bad to you. Zeke would stop him. I glanced at Zeke, not ready to offend Kyle even more without appropriate backup. Zeke and coach stood like statues. Firm and unmoving. Zeke glanced at Kyle. Focus on better pitches. Don't get so rattled. Yes. Kyle responded. He walked off the mound and wiggled his arms, probably to loosen up. He came back on the mound and eyed me down, but no longer looking as fierce. Ready. I felt better and stepped back in the batter's box. The next pitch came. Hit. Then the next. Hit. And so on. Hit. 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 Kyle pitched a total of 30 baseballs that I sent all over the outfield. Some pitches looked on the border of the strike zone, yet it was close so I still sent it out. That's enough. Zeke called out. Jake, take a small break as we collect the balls. Dave, you'll start taking a few practice throws with Kelvin. We all split up. Kyle and Zeke jogged out to collect the balls together. Dave and Kelvin started to warm up again. The coach went over and spoke to Garrett and Jordan. Noah followed me to the dugout and handed me one of his waters. Excellent start. Noah told me as I drank. Kyle's face was priceless. Dave started talking crap halfway in, saying he could do better. But, they're identical twins. Even their pitching doesn't have much variation. His eyes twinkled. Want to know what you should do this time? I closed the water bottle and nodded. Anything that could help me get on Noah's team would be something I could try. Foul every pitch. Like you did in the 100 miles per hour cage. He laughed to himself. I can't wait to see Dave's expression after you foul 30 of his pitches back. I wonder if that would make him more frustrated than Kyle, because he would think that he's doing well when you're actually just messing with him. So he just wants me to do it for amusement? I rolled my eyes. Hey. It can benefit you too. Noah tried to convince me. Just think. This can show Coach and Zeke your perfect batting control. Not everyone can foul every pitch. It could be a deciding factor on maybe letting you into the team. I mulled it over. I guess foul tipping could be considered a talent. I glanced at Dave, who was throwing some very hard pitches. Tell Zeke. I mumbled. Zeke? You want me to tell him that you'll be fouling every pitch? Noah asked, sounding confused. I nodded. Why? Let's go. Dave hollered from the mound, sounding pumped up. Kyle made me anxious, but nowhere near as much as Dave. I pointed at him. Scary. Noah watched as his brother stood on the mound sounding super excited and ready to go. You're right. He might be slightly more emotional than Kyle. I snorted. I'll tell Zeke to watch out. Not that I think Dave would charge you and knock you out. But if it makes you more comfortable then I'll do it. We walked out of the dugout together. Kelvin had a full bucket of baseballs near him as he squatted behind home plate. Zeke and Kyle stood with Coach and the others already. Noah joined them and started to tell them what I was going to do. I could see their jaws drop with disbelief. Zeke was the only one not to lose composure. He just gave Noah a nod. Noah turned back to face me and gave me the universal okay with his hand. I sighed with relief, then stepped into the righty's box once more. Dave faced me down with a gleam in his eyes. He looks so excited, I feel like I'm going to do something very wrong and slightly mean. He got set and did his wind-up motion. I clenched the bat and began my mission. Fouls. The first pitch came in hard and fast. I fouled it back. Woohoo! Dave cheered. He looked at Kyle. That's how you do it, Kyle. No perfect performance for him now. Kyle's lips twitched, fighting off a smile. Sure. I'll believe you if you can get him to miss. Kelvin tossed a new ball to Dave and he got set once more. The pitch came and I fouled it back again. Dave did another round of self-cheering, making me feel guilty on the inside. We did the same thing for 5 or so pitches, until Dave caught on. He started to frown before every pitch, then scowl, until he finally looked outright pissed. Are you doing this on purpose, Jake? He started to step off the mound. I took a few steps back, keeping a safe distance. It's part of the tryout. Zeke declared. Get back on the mound. Unless you want to forfeit and make us lose the bet? If you do, you'll be the one cleaning the bathroom for the next 3 months. Stop trying to act like a tyrant. That sounded a bit funny coming from the real tyrant. Dave grumbled, but stayed on the mound. He tried moving his pitches to the inside, outside, low and high, but I was able to keep fouling them back. His speed wasn't enough to fool my eyes. After the 30th foul, he stomped off the mound and went to the dugout. Kelvin ran after him. I looked towards the group just in time for Noah to pounce on me. Unreal. He shook me a bit. I'm even more convinced that you're a machine. I turned red at the compliment and pushed him off me. I examined my bat to check for chips or cracks. Not too bad. I looked at Zeke, who was talking to Garrett and Jordan by their coach. Looks like they're planning something. Noah noticed where I was looking. But we planned something too, so you're in a good spot. I nodded. Their talk didn't take very long. Garrett jogged to the mound and Jordan to home plate. The coach waved us over as Zeke headed to his teammates in the outfield. What's up, coach? Noah asked as we got close. Garrett started to practice some pitches with Jordan, so we were still having a face-off, we just didn't know what the change was. Coach jerked a thumb at the team in the outfield. Zeke is getting some players to fill in. Make it more game-like. Sure, Jake can hit some pretty sweet pitches, but I want to know if he can hit them to the open spots in the field. I don't want just a player hitting right to the field players. Noah looked at me. I shrugged. I've never tried avoiding players or hitting to open space. In the cages, I can't really tell where the ball would go, so I like hitting it right back to the pitching machine. Noah gave me a pat on the back and whispered. I won't be fielding against you, so just hit up the middle. Just don't hit Garrett. He is the ace. I nodded. Sounds fair. I wouldn't want to hit anybody. Especially the best pitcher on Noah's team. Looks like the whole team is going to watch. Kind of makes it feel like a scrimmage or something. Noah commented as Zeke came back with the whole group. Some players went to positions right away, probably wherever Zeke assigned them. The assistant coach and leftover players went to the dugout to watch. Oh? This is getting serious. Mr. Miller came out of nowhere, making me jump. Noah patted my shoulder. You need to stop being so tense. People coming from behind don't usually attack. You always react like you're doing something you're not supposed to. I gave a weak smile. Technically I was doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing. He gave me a push to the batter's box. Go. Remember the plan. Kick butt and we win extra desserts. I nodded and left him with the coach and Mr. Miller. Unlike before, I took a few practice swings as a left-handed batter. Jordan threw the ball to Garrett, then glanced down at me. You want to try batting lefty against a lefty? I nodded. Aren't you afraid of the curve? It'd be more beneficial to hit right-handed just in case. I shook my head. Noah said to watch out for the cut fastball, which would come inside for a righty. Noah knows him better than I do, so I should just stick with the plan. Jordan raised his eyebrows and shrugged. Well, if you can do it, then do it. He squatted behind the plate. I stepped in the lefty's box and got set. Facing down Garrett wasn't as scary as the Twins. He was calm and there was no specific expression on his face. I looked past him and took note where all the field players were. Dropping a hit just past the infield and right before the outfield would be best, but the outfield looked like they were playing in. If I hit the ball like I normally do, it would be a line out for sure. Garrett started his motion and I gripped my bat a little tighter than normal. Noah said to hit it just over his head, right between the shortstop and second baseman. His pitch wasn't the cutter, it was an average fastball, not much different from the Twins. I hit it perfectly up the middle. As the ball was fielded by the center fielder, only Noah was clapping and cheering for me. Everyone else just seemed focused on the next pitch. Garrett started to work, throwing pitches around the strike zone and at various speeds. I easily sent them to the same spot over and over. "Can you hit it anywhere else?" The coach approached me at the batter's box after the 10th hit. I looked at Noah. He was the one that told me to hit it there. Was there somewhere else I should hit to? Noah jogged over. "Sorry coach, that's where I told him to hit it to." "Are you saying he can hit anywhere he wants?" "Within reason, I suppose." Noah answered. "I've seen Jake bat in the cages. He likes to hit in the same spot over and over. Just like how he can do continuous fouls. He's like a machine, right?" The coach looked at me, impressed. "He can't hit a home run obviously." Mr. Miller joined us. He looked down at me, making me nervous. I took a slight step back. "And he doesn't have a backbone." Noah crosses his arms in front of his chest. "He doesn't need one with me around. The point is, he can hit well." "Very well." Mr. Miller looked at me. "Can you at least bunt?" I pointed at the first and third base line. "Are you asking us which side? Or telling us, you can hit both sides?" The lack of communication between players and coaches are very important. How are we going to keep taking time out of practice to play charades with you? The other assistant coach joined us. I think it was Coach Luis. I tugged at Noah's sleeve, feeling pressured by the man. Even Coach Wilcox and Mr. Miller frowned at him. Noah glared at Coach Luis. Jake obviously said he could do both. "If you keep bringing up his muteness, I'll tell my mom and dad." Apparently this coach has said something while I was hitting against Garrett. "Luis, I don't think you're being very appropriate. Why don't you let me make the decisions here?" Coach Wilcox made a stand. He looked at me. "So you can bunt?" I nodded. "How about fielding?" "The basics." Noah answered for me. "He can play second, so we'll be able to work together." "How basic?" Mr. Miller asked. "Let's find out." Noah rubbed his nose, trying to hide a smile. "Jake hasn't actually played in a game before." "What?" all three coaches exclaimed. Mr. Miller was the first one to react. He started to laugh and reached out, patting Noah on the shoulder. "You found an unpolished gem." "Nice one." Noah swatted his hand away. Jake had family problems and couldn't play before. So he only practiced batting. Everything else would have to be taught. "Let's see what you can do," Coach Wilcox said. "As long as it's halfway decent, we can keep him in the lineup and use his batting. Go grab your glove." I did what I was told and ran back to the dugout, which was still had half the team there. I slowed up and stuttered step, trying to decide if I'll be able to get my glove safely. "What are you hesitating for?" Kyle called out. "We all saw your superb hitting. If we didn't let you on the team, wouldn't that mean that none of us pitchers should be on the team either?" I saw the other guys with him smile and laugh. None were glaring at me or yelling at me, so it must be okay now. I went in the dugout and changed out my bat and helmet for my old second-hand glove. Then I started to run back out. "Wait!" a loud voice commanded. I froze and slowly turned around to see Dave coming my way. I felt my whole body twitch, automatically thinking about running back to Noah. Dave was the one that was the most pissed off, and he might still be angry at me. To my surprise, he slapped a baseball hat on my head. "You need this. You can't play baseball without one." He gave me a serious nod, then walked back to his friends. I fixed the cap so I could see properly and went back to Noah and the coaches. "They're just going to have you field some grounders to first and second. Then maybe catch some pop flies." Noah smiled at me. If you can just do okay, they'll let you be on the team. Then later this week, you and I can start practice turning double plays. I nodded eagerly. Noah looked around. I wonder where Zeke went. He's going to flip out once he finds out you made it. Then we can tell Mom and Dad and celebrate during dinner. Oh, then we can also call Mr. Duncan. He'll be happy for you too. Who else? I shook my head sadly. That was it. Just his family and my guardian. There wasn't anyone else to brag to. Noah saw my depressed face. Hey. No sad faces. You still have to show some fielding skill. Go, go, go. He pushed me towards second base. I felt like they went pretty easy on me for the fielding test. The coach just smacked a few grounders my way and would call out to throw it to first or second base. He'd occasionally mix in a pop-up or line drive, but I didn't really have to dive in the dirt. Which is good, I guess, since I've never tried. Maybe they could sense my hesitancy to do so. That's all we really need to see for now, kid. Coach Wilcox called me in and I went over. He stood with Mr. Miller, Zeke, and Noah. I didn't even notice when Coach Luis left. Maybe they could see that he made me uncomfortable. We'll put you on the varsity roster. Noah started jumping around me excitedly. Did you hear that, Jake? You made it. We win. Extra cookies all week. At this point, I'm pretty sure all Noah ever thinks about is cookies. That doesn't automatically make you a starter. Zeke burst the bubble of excitement. Some players go the whole year without seeing any official playing time. The first game will be the following Saturday in a tournament we're in. League play will start the week after that. So for now, practice hard and learn what you can. I looked to Noah. I really didn't know much about baseball and league play. Heck, I never even got to watch a professional game before. Noah just patted my shoulder. Don't worry, I'll explain tonight after dinner. Just be happy with me. You made the team. As long as we get your fielding and baseball knowledge up to par, your batting skills can get you a spot in the starting lineup. Zeke is just being a negative Nancy. 10 laps. Zeke clenched his jaw. Noah wagged a finger back and forth in front of him. Nope. The betting terms said you wouldn't make me run laps anymore. Zeke's lips twitched, almost upturning to form a smile. I said for non-baseball reasons. These 10 laps have a baseball-related reason. Oh yeah. Noah glared at him. What's the reason? Jake is new. It's unlikely that his endurance is up to varsity levels. Show him what a lap looks like. Then you both can do 10 to familiarize yourselves. You want to be able to play short and second with one another, right? Get going. Zeke turned away before Noah could even sputter out a reply. Mr. Miller and the coach laughed at the captain's antics and just left us to go back to the team. Noah groaned. What a cheat. He's just bitter that he lost the bet and that he can't get me to clean his bathroom. Is their bathroom really that bad? Mine and Noah's seemed pretty clean. Better get your laps done before practice is over, or you'll be walking home. Zeke's voice carried from across the field where the team was gathered. Noah sent another wasted glare at his oldest brother, then turned to me. Let's go put your glove back in the dugout and rehydrate. Every 5 laps is 1 mile. So we'll have to run too. It isn't hard. He walked us back to the dugout. I was debating if now was a bad time to tell him I haven't ran such a distance since before my hospitalization. We drank some water and I left my glove with his on the bench. Then he led me to the outer circumference on the fence that went all around the field. Let's do this. He took off, leaving me a few paces behind. Come on, Jake. 2 miles isn't bad compared to the 4 I usually get. Zeke must be going easy on us. Easy? I trailed behind Noah the whole first lap. By the second lap, I was gasping for air. I'm so out of shape. Noah looked at me with concern, as he slowed up to match my jogging pace. Do you not like running? Why do you sound so out of breath already? We're not even a mile in. Haven't ran in a while. I gasped out, forcing my feet to keep moving forward. It'd be embarrassing if I was kicked off the team for not being able to run laps. You're kidding. Noah watched me struggle. Maybe I should tell Zeke? This might be too much too soon. I shook my head. Nope. I just had to fight against it. I forced air into my lungs and kept pushing myself. It took me 15 minutes for each mile. A whole half hour of running at a pathetically slow pace. I didn't even make it back to the dugout. As soon as we got in through the fence, I fell to the ground, and sprawled out, trying to catch my breath. Jake? You still alive? Noah looked over me. You're like really red right now. Should I go get the trainer? Trainer? Like someone who gets other people into shape? I could use that another day, maybe. Right now I just want to rest. I closed my eyes. What's wrong? I heard Zeke asked. He must have came over once he saw me collapse to the ground. Is he playing dead? Kyle suggested. He probably is dead. Dave retorted. This is his first varsity practice. Don't you remember those days? I'm telling Mom. Noah declared. You pushed him too hard and now look. I told you, you shouldn't have made us run 10 laps. Relax. Mr. Miller's voice joined the fray. The kid is just tired and out of shape. He's never played in a game, so he's probably never been on a team or done a real practice before. Try to do 3 hours of hitting, running, and fielding for your first official practice. It won't be easy. I opened my eyes and found a lot of them standing around me. I pointed at Mr. Miller. The grumpy man nodded at my response. See? I'm right. He grabbed my arm and pulled me to my feet. Don't lay on the grass after running like that. Put your hands on your head to open up your lungs. I did as I was told. That'll be it for you today. Mr. Miller stated. I'll tell Wilcox. This week we'll work on you getting into shape, and focus on your synergy with the little Atkins. Your batting doesn't look like it needs adjusting, so we can leave it be. You won't participate in hitting practice. He nodded at his own plans, then walked back to the head coach who was speaking with the team. We'll go home early today, Zeke said out of nowhere. The 3 other brothers stared at him in shock. He cleared his throat. Go grab your stuff. Meet at the car. I'll tell Coach. He followed Mr. Miller's footsteps and left just as suddenly. Dave and Kyle looked at one another, then at me. Wow. Who knew you would be so handy, Jake? Dave was the first to say something. Losing that bet doesn't feel so bad right now. That's right. You owe 10 laps. Noah smirked. And Kyle will have to give up his sweets during lunch for the week. And Zeke will give us his for the month. Noah smiled happily. And we're going home early. And Mom and Dad will probably take us out to celebrate. This is the best Monday I've ever had in my life. Do you think they'll really take us out to eat? Kyle smiled at the thought. They did when we each made varsity. Noah reasoned. They'll want to do it for Jake too. He waved his hand. Come on Jake, let's pack it up. We'll do a whole day of practice tomorrow. Tonight we'll celebrate. Oh, and I can pull up some of the greatest double play duos in the history of the MLB. I nodded eagerly and followed. He's just like a dog. I heard Dave say to Kyle. More like a puppy. Kyle replied. Noah calls to him and he follows. Noah never followed us like that when we called him. What a non-cute little brother. Noah waited until we were far enough before saying, the only times they asked me to follow them along was so that they could torture me. Tickle torture. I would pee my pants and it traumatized me. I nodded. I've seen them in action. Although Noah didn't pee his pants last night, it didn't look like fun. But for the record, I don't think of you as my puppy or dog. Just my younger brother. I've got to do my best to protect you from the other 3. He declared and started to pack up our gear. Noah didn't notice how his words affect me. I felt really touched at the thought of having a brother that wanted to protect me. Even though we haven't known each other for a whole week, he felt more like a brother than the one I had. We packed up pretty quickly. It didn't take long for all of us to pile in the car and head to their house. Wow. They're both home. Noah said after seeing both of their cars in the driveway. We had to park out on the street in front of their house. All 5 of us hopped out and grabbed our bags. The older 3 left their baseball bags in the trunk, but Noah went and grabbed his. What are you doing with that? Kyle raised an eyebrow. I need to take it inside. Jake's bat requires extra care and maintenance since it's wood. Plus I want Dad to take us to O'Connor's and get Jake some equipment. He can't keep using mine. It's not exactly a proper fit. Oh good. I want to go to O'Connor's too. Dave jumped in. My batting gloves get torn so easily. He glanced at me. I don't know how Jake can hit without a pair. I flipped my hands and showed them my calluses. Dangag. The twins said at the same time. What are you boys doing just hanging out in the front yard? A feminine voice called out to us. We looked towards the front door to see Mrs. Atkins staring us down, with her hands on her hips. Just admiring Jake's work ethic. Kyle replied. You're all back so early. Did something happen? She frowned, examining all of us. We all looked at Zeke. He stepped up first to head inside. I called it early today. Jake made the team. But he's out of shape, so we brought him home to rest. I'm going to shower first. Second. The twins called out at the same time. They looked at one another and then raced to the house and probably up the stairs. Noah and I brought up the rear. She looked us over. Why is Jake all dirty and sweaty? You look like you didn't even practice. Noah slapped me on the back. It was a tryout, Mom. They wanted to see how he did. And then after he made the team, Zeke made us run 10 laps each. Poor Jake couldn't last. He collapsed as soon as we finished. Oh, Jake, is that true? She looked me up and down. You do look a bit exhausted. Come inside and sit down. Let's tell Wayne what happened and see how he wants to deal with Zeke. We followed her in the house and found Mr. Atkins in the office. He was working on the computer, but quickly gave us his undivided attention. Even sitting down, he was as tall as me. Dad, Zeke made Jake and I run 10 laps for no reason. Noah got right to the point and complained about his oldest brother's wrongdoings. Jake had just finished his tryout, made the team, and didn't even meet with our teammates before we were sent on a run. 10 laps. Mr. Atkins frowned. That's only 2 miles. That shouldn't be too hard for you. He looked at me. But for Jake, you feeling okay? I shrugged. I just felt tired and a little sore. Jake, do you mind if we give the boys some background on you? Nothing too detailed, I promise. I just don't want them pushing you too hard, too fast. I shrugged once more. It didn't seem like a big deal, but maybe they were worried because I only left the rehab hospital last week. Noah said Jake collapsed after running. Do you think we should do a checkup or something? Mrs. Atkins looked worried. Mr. Atkins turned to Noah. Is that true? He just wanted to lie down on the grass because he was so tired. It wasn't like he passed out. Noah quickly corrected. I told Zeke that he shouldn't make him run so much on his first day, but he said it was for endurance reasons. I'm pretty sure he did that because you called him a negative Nancy. Noah sure had guts to tattle on Zeke. I'd be too scared to say anything at all. Okay, we'll discuss at dinner. We'll go to Da Vinci's to celebrate you making varsity. As a freshman, no less. Mr. Atkins stood up. I took a few steps back to give him space. All right, mostly to give me space to run since he still intimidated me. Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. Why don't you boys hurry and shower? Yep. Noah grabbed my arm and started to drag me past his mom. But he quickly stopped. We need to go to O'Connor's after dinner too. Jake has almost nothing. And my stuff is a bit big or baggy. Both of his parents nodded and agreed. Not even showing a hint of displeasure. I wonder if all parents were this nice and caring, and it was just me that got unlucky? This episode ends here, thanks for watching.